Hello, Fáilte Whig, Léigh Arís, Conastal Woods, Gaeilge. This is the last episode or last bit of content going out for free on YouTube as part of the free week for the LIO membership. Hope you've enjoyed the content. The episode of Aistriú on Monday, the episode of Éist Arís on Thursday, now today, Saturday, the episode of Léigh Arís, and the Gaeilge Weekly benefits, the early access and the PDFs. And there's loads more available over at patreon.com/learn Irish online. You can sign up for another free week there, because it's a 7 day free trial. 7 weeks would be quite a lot to give away for free, but a 7-day free trial after that, only €7 a month plus that. But if you're watching already on Patreon, thank you for being a member already, regardless of if you've been here since the last few days with the free week, or if you've been here since August 2023 when we first launched the membership. Today, read through another article. I know last time was a bit different on Léigh Arís. We booked a room, or almost booked a room, in the Cape Verde Islands on Airbnb, ag Déanú Gachrad as Gaeilge. Today, going back to more of a classic original format here on Léigh Arís. That is going through an article on our favourite website, aistriú.ie. For me, the best website if you're learning Irish to read the language. And instead of looking at two articles and just kind of the opening of two articles, we're going to look at the majority or big part of one. We're going to go all the way down to here, the Inis an Lochachacher. This story about Maggie Thatcher's sidekick, or hard man, Norman Tebbit, and his death today, and a bit about his life. So, as always, I'm going to read it out as Gaeilge, then we'll break down line by line, try and translate it back from Irish to English, and do a few deep dives into a few, I suppose, grammar things that come up here and there as well. And the link will be down below if you want to read the rest of the article or follow along in your own tab instead of watching here. Norman Tebbit, Far Crua Marga Thatcher, Marv. Tá Norman Tebbit will call as a rál hibrithe díostaithe le linníte cochtadí, dul ruchir agus obaráil Marv ag Éist Arís. Tá Norman Tebbit ar cabinet sa bhratan agus duine de na cóhfuil ba díalsa ag Marga Thatcher tar éis bháiseáil in Éist Arís. Bhain sé clómax níos a cochtadí, nor bhil sé do chuoine díostaithe dul ruchir agus postalúirg, cé nó úsáid sé an phrása sin go dtíreach riamh. Dúirt sé gur héach áthar amach ruchir gach maidsans ní te trochadaí ag lúirg ibre. Bhín ráte sin ina himbal dar le lucht an rasra, neamh him na gomádach I le na díostaíochta a bhí ag méadú ag an ann. Thug Michael Fuss ó Fórtaí an Lucht Ibre, chuir síos mar polecat la ulsa, semi-how strange polecat. Ach lach Tebbit leis an íomhá sin mar duine crua agus ag tacail ó políocha margaí hir Thatcher a rinne dochar mór de phobal fud na brataine. Le linn a héal full túil, bhí sé na rúnaí fostíochta, rúnaí trádáil agus tionscail, Chancellor Dúchacht Lancaster agus ina chahirirlach Fórtaí Comádach, Jefni Oach William a bhás I rátas ag a héinsaig, Cuidsaig nó cartaréis héinsaig, Madsen an sachtal lámiúil gavisve cuig for an tír na Tebbit bás síochananta sa bhaile in Éist an Lochachacher. Okay, so just read until there. There's a good bit in there, and some parts of this are quite tough, a lot of grammar stuff going on as well, but once we break it down line by line, it should hopefully become a bit easier. Okay, and there are aspects of Munster Irish in this as well, as we'll see, and we'll point them out as we go along. So, firstly, headline on Ceanlína. Norman Tebbit, so his name, Far Crua Maggie Thatcher. So Maggie Thatcher's hard man. Again, think about the order there. Always say possession, possessor. Okay, so as I'm talking about so often here in the membership, guys, all this stuff, even though it looks a lot more complicated than it actually is, you can relay it back to a really simple example. So my dad's dog would be Madra Ma'aher. If I asked you my dad's dog, most of you would get that. Well, it's the exact same concept here, just instead of the dog, it's Far Crua, and instead of my dad as the owner, as the possessor, it's Maggie Thatcher. Same thing. Okay, possession and then possessor. Far Crua, Maggie Thatcher. So Maggie Thatcher's hard man, dead. Okay, pretty blunt headline, but anyway. Tá Norman Tebbit. So Norman Tebbit is, and then like we have in lots of articles, going to give a bit of context about him, who he is. So really the sentence is Tá Norman Tebbit, Marv ag Éist Arís, or Nóchachacher Níchachacher more. The Connemara saying of it, or pronunciation of it, Nócha, the standard pronunciation. So Norman Tebbit is dead in 94, but what's the bit, almost like in brackets between those two? Norman Tebbit, a will, so who is, Call as ará, so that's in other words that is famous or that is known, okay? Sometimes for famous can be a bit tricky. We could just say here atá callúil for who is famous, but again, often with writing, you want to style it up a bit, make it sound a bit smoother, a bit more art to it. If you're speaking, you may as well just say atá call it sounds just as good, but writing, of course, like in any language, a bit more details, a bit more, you want to put a bit of a shine on it, I guess, and use a bit of variation instead of always saying things in the most simple way. So call is kind of the noun of it. Let's say fame, okay? That fame is on him. We'll call there. Why is it a will? Again, head up to the glossary here on the membership, or sign up for the membership and head to the glossary as well, and check out the video on a will versus the tá. Also speak about a go, gur, a will, and so on in that video, and gur, nar, knock, and so on. Okay, all those connections and difference between a tá and a will. Here it's indirect. We're not saying he is fame. If we're saying he is famous, that would make sense. We're saying he is fame, so we want to use the indirect one because it's fame is on him. Okay, so who was famous, or who is famous, I guess, they use present tense here, that fame is on him. As ará, so why is he famous? For saying. As ará. So often we do use the as for different things where it mean for. In English, thank you for your help, Garmagat as the chud cower, or as ucht. We'll often say as ucht, the chud cower, as well as that my fragrach as gachrad, and so I'm responsible for everything here. Okay, so for saying to, again, that's the verb aber as the root, the irregular, like dorts me, so that's always used with le. Dorts me lum, I said to him. Same thing here, it's the infinitive raw, and then it's le, instead of lum or lat, we're naming them, so it's le hibriha. To separate the vowels clashing, we put in the H. So le hibriha, ziostiha. Again, a lot of this grammar stuff, don't be too stressed out sitting here going, oh, I would have never put in that H, I would have forgot that, or I wouldn't have used as, I would have said lahai. Don't worry, when you're speaking, firstly, a lot of those wouldn't be mistakes anyway, but when you're speaking, there's a lot more, room to do things in different ways. This is just the way someone's wrote it. We could rewrite this article 100 times with different ways of phrasing it. And again, as I always say, H's and R's, you'll get better at them over time. You should know about the main ones, certainly while you're starting off in your first few months of learning the language. You don't want to say mamadra, you want to say mawadra. But if you forgot one like that, if you said le ibriha, you'd barely hear that if someone is speaking anyway. Le ibriha, le hibriha, not much of a difference. So again, there's levels of importance to the stuff. The more important something is, the quicker you want to learn it. Something not as critical as I often say, such as that, le ibriha, certainly for speaking. Okay, a bit more important when writing, when it's, in black and white. But when you're speaking, a bit more room to, get that stuff wrong or not put too much attention on that until later down the line when you're at a higher level and you've got the more critical stuff covered off. Fostiha would be employed, so giostiha, G put in the H, G like nyav, which we're going to see later on in the piece down here, is going to mean like im in English, and on, it negates it. Okay, so fostiha employed, giostiha unemployed. So, Norman Tebbit, I know there's a lot in this earlier on, he was famous for saying to unemployed workers, le lin is the same as iri. So le lin, nanita kuktaji, during the 1980s, those decades always end with ig. There's no real word for the 2000s, the noughties, but apart from that, the nokaji, the huktaji, the shaftaji, the shaskaji, the koigaji, the karakaji, or the dahaji, whichever you want to use, the truckaji, and the fihaji. Okay? Dul rohir, so to go on their bikes, So I told them to, like they say in English, get on your bike. Agus ober all, and to find work or to get work. And he's dead in 94. So the bit in the middle, I see Norman Tebbit, who's famous for a lot of things. One of the things he's famous for is saying to unemployed workers during the 1980s, go and get on your bike and get some work. Is dead at the age of 94. Okay? So Norman Tebbit, Éist Arís cabinet. So they do a very similar thing here. Really, the sentence is Tá Norman Tebbit. Someone said to me I should start highlighting here. It would make it easier. Tá Norman Tebbit. Thresh Básha all. So Thresh forcing the genitive always afterwards. If said Thresh Básha all, nobody would bat an eyelid. Guys, certainly speaking, writing, a bit more important but not super important. Thresh does force the genitive. Thresh na hibra instead of Thresh on upper would be a common one. So Thresh Básha all, after getting death again for my boss, I died. So therefore Thresh Básha all, after dying. In ish anoch chahar, we could say eg ish anoch chahar. It's the same one. It's the same sentence basically. Okay, so what's the bit about him here? Éist Arís, Éist is the prefix for former. Éist Uachtarán na Stáit Aontaithe, Bill Clinton, the former president of the US, Bill Clinton. So Éist Arís is minister. So former cabinet minister, Savratan in Britain. Agus Dinna, Den a cóhfuil ba ílte. Cóhfuil is tough to translate, okay? Looking it up beforehand, I'll show you here on folklore, trying to find the best word for it in English, component. But I wouldn't really, you wouldn't say one of Margaret Thatcher's closest. This is Éist Arís, basically Gaeilge in the past, most loyal. Okay, so most loyal aides, I guess, maybe you'd say. Often they use that in English politics, especially in the Conservative Party, a Conservative Party aide, AIDE. So let's say that, or basically sidekicks definitely isn't the word, but one of closest or most loyal servants, disciples, even anything like that. Those aren't the best words, but you get what I mean. Okay, then so one of, okay, like we'd say in English, one of the, we wouldn't say person of the, so one of basically Margaret Thatcher's closest or most loyal, in this case, Gaeilge being loyal. I don't really use the but for these ones, so regardless of whether it's past, present, or future, or speaking about, I just use is. That's the niece and the is. So niece Gaeilge, more loyal, is Gaeilge, most loyal. In older Irish and again certain dialects, people will use the but for when you're talking about the past. This is obviously back in the day during the 70s and 80s with Thatcher, so therefore uses the but. In the same way, is Munster A, he's a teacher, Bull Munster A, he was a teacher, so it's is changed to the but, even though is for a different thing here, it's for the superlative. Okay, so I would say that is Gaeilge, most loyal accomplice or aide, let's say. Ag Margaret Thatcher. Okay, so one of Margaret Thatcher's closest aides. Bhain sé clú amach ní ag hochtaí. Clú, same thing as call. So tá clú agus call there is a nice phrase. He's famous, he's well known. So reputation, let's say. Bhain sé again used for a lot of things. So extracted. But when bhain is used for different things, it can mean different things. So bhain le is going to mean to do with. Bhain amach is to achieve. So bhain sé clú amach, he achieved a reputation sa ní ag hochtaí in the 1980s. Nor Volche, when he recommended or encouraged to unemployed people. Dul rohor mul can mean a lot of things. Praise, encourage, suggest. Often used first person conditional. Wolchin, MHOLFAINN. For I would recommend. I'd really recommend this. Wolchin Gomor is a lovely phrase. Okay, when he recommended, let's say, or suggested to unemployed people to go on their bike. So in that case, bike is singular. We don't have the I at the end. Changes the pronunciation slightly. Agus post alerg and to search for a job or to look for a job. K and or usad say on frasashin. So K go would be even though, and here it's the negative. So we need and negative past. So it changes knock because it's negative. K knock will say chin even though he's not sick. And then here past tense K nor usad even though he didn't use that phrase exactly ever. So in other words, he never used that exact phrase. Okay. Dort say gur heach her. So heach, I got a message about this from someone actually a few weeks ago here on the Patreon, and I've never really covered it, so maybe I'll do something on it. This, if you go to folklore.ie and you look up a word, let's do it. No, why not? Folklore. Okay, so go do che. So I can go past, present, future, conditional. We've done all these. Imperative I've spoken about. Subjunctive isn't really used too much anymore. Past habitual, never really talked about here on the membership. There you have it. So again, kind of similar endings, just without the F to the Mochnílach. And this is basically used to. Mainly only used in Munster, and even then in Munster not used too often. So this is one of our signs. The author here is actually unnamed, no idea why. Isn't, or we know is probably from Munster, speaks more so Munster Irish. So heach, and you have the mish, edish at the end, very similar, just without the F to the Mochnílach. Again, you do not need to use this yourself, guys. Even if you're focusing on Munster Irish, you don't need to use it, but you need to be able to understand it. Okay, oftentimes we'll just use conditional to phrase that, okay, like we would in English. Oh, I would always go there when I was a kid. In other words, I used to always go there when I was a kid. Or you can just use normal past tense, phrase it in a certain way where it's clear what's going on. Okay, so he said that his father would used to go out, okay, on his bike every morning, sníteag trocadí in the 30s, looking for work. Again, after glurg. If you can, remember to use the genitive after déanú glurg, any of those continuous ones. Again, the 2012 revisions on Caighdeán Ofigiúil Standard took away some of the importance of that. So if you don't want to do it, again, if you're in your first year or two of learning the language or relearn the language, don't worry too much about that. Focus more so on the stuff that is important and critical. If you said a glurg Gilbert, if I was teaching class, probably wouldn't even correct that unless the student was at quite a high level and wanted to focus a bit more on the grammar. If you enroach a shin in a himble, So that statement was a symbol, again, one of the many ways around the copula instead of saying Bahimble A on Roch Sin, which we could say a bit more spice or flair. That's the word I was looking for earlier. Flair in written Irish, like there would be in any language. So that statement was a symbol, okay? According to Lucht and Razra, according to the opposition, okay? Frasra would be opposition, so Lucht and Razra, the crowd, the group of the opposition. We use that a lot in Irish. Think on Lucht Fechana for viewership or viewers, okay? Being Lucht Fechana, the watching crowd. In sport, you'll often hear it taught on Lucht Lanuna, Tere Shriku, on Stad or something like that. The following crowd, in other words, the fans, is a collective entity. Okay, so the opposition is a collective entity. Again, we could just say Darlish and Razra there, according to the opposition. Okay, but according to the people or the group of the opposition. So again, we can kind of remove that for a second. So that statement was a symbol, or nyav him, the disinterest of who? Here we have the genitive, no gomodak, disinterest of the Conservatives, it le na giostikota. Interesting here thing, you might be thinking, I've heard that before, that's the verb keep. What's another word for keep in English to conserve? If I conserve something, I keep it. So again, I can use Comád or Quinny for I keep my phone in the box here. So equally when we're saying conservatives, same thing. A lot of these words are linked. You'd be amazed by how easy you can connect them up. Ile is another one for ohave or modzerle in regards to, okay, a lot of ways of saying that in Irish. So disinterest the Conservatives in the unemployment, or in regards to the unemployment. Again, we have a little bit genitive there with the na, so we know this is feminine. That was increasing at the time of Ig Meidu Egnaum M for everything getting bigger in Irish, Nis Mo, more, Meidu, L for smaller, Nis Lu. Biog in fairness doesn't begin with L, but then Eglaidu decreasing, and so on. Hug Michael Fush of Forty and Look Dibra. And Look Dibra is the working class, so Portsy and Look Dibra, the O forcing the H here, that's the Labour Party, in other words, the working class party. Okay, Kershis Air, Mar Polkash La Ilse describes him. Okay, so her Kershis Air, especially when used with her, is to describe. We can also say Jane Kershis Air. Riname Kershis Air and Gliha, I described the game. So imagine Kershis as a description and putting down of the game. So I did, or I gave a description of the game. So Michael Fush, let's forget though, Forzi and Look Dibra. Michael Fush gave a Kershis, a description on him as, here's the mar, as opposed to because, a semi-house trained Polkash. Almost there, guys, stick with me. And again, you don't need to be getting all this. I know I'm going through it a bit quick. If there's different bits you haven't understood, go back, see if you can figure it out again. Leave a comment down below, I'll get back to you. And even if you don't pick up everything, guys, depending on your level, once you've learned 4 or 5 things in this episode, as I always say, you've progressed. Make sure when you go to bed tonight, your Irish is better than it was in the morning, even if you've literally learned 2 or 3 words. Okay? That's all that matters. So it's not about getting everything here, just about picking up stuff on Shus and Jude here and there. Achlach tebish lesh on evashin. Glock used with le. Again, glock means take, but glock used with le, bit like buin earlier. It's gonna mean to accept. ACCEPT. So, but tebish accepted or kind of embraced, let's say, that image on evashin. So we know eva there isn't going to be masculine because we don't have a T in front of it, like on Tudor or on Tult for the author, the article. Martina Crua, he kind of embraced or accepted that image as a hard man or a hard person, while, so the agus here used for while, ag takula policia margi here, Thatcher's free market policies. Okay, we have double genitive, that's not any difference to normal genitive, so look, the last bit, margi here, so genitive there, and genitive on Thatcher as well. But that's not really too important for understanding this. Eg taku the policia margi here Thatcher. So policia policies, margi here, again the free market of Thatcher. So Thatcher's free market policies. Eg taku le supporting. Okay, always used with the le. Arina ducker more that caused or made or did big damage the fubble or fud na bratana. Because we have the I there, we know it's plural, to communities across Britain, or fubble or fud na bratana. The Lynn a hail full of tool during his political life, Vishay in the Rooney Fostiuchta. So again, Lynn instead of a writ, we have the genitive here. Even though it's his and it's not during the political life, we still use the genitive there in terms of the spelling. It's going to sound fairly similar anyway, but for other words, obviously that could sound different. Okay, across his city, or fud a chahark, or fud a chahark. Okay, full of tool. So during his political life, bhí sé ina rúnaí fostíochta, again the ina, one of the many ways around the copula, we don't want to say but rúnaí fostíochta he was, or but even a rúnaí fostíochta It's a bit clunky, so again, especially written Irish, the ways around it are important and more natural really, and more easier to use as well. He was, again, Rooney is going to be secretary, so fostíochta, employment secretary. He was the trade and industry secretary. Tunscall is industry, Tunscall with the I is industries. And then we have the Chancellor, Léigh Lancaster. I had to look this up. This is the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster or something. Needless to say, growing up in Galway, don't know what that is. Agus ina Cahir look. So again, more the ear sound, just separated from anything to do with city, because we have the A-O-I-R. So city will be Cahir. And then seat or chair would be Cahir. Cahir, more so chair. Seat is Siacon. And then what's that going to mean? Chairman. Okay, a chairperson on the Conservative Party. He was, in other words, the Conservative Party chairman. Okay, and we could just drop the air there if we wanted to and use the genitive here for these. Yevney is announced. Okay, so Yevney Owak William. So his son William announced his death, Avos. If that was her death, it would be Abos, and their death, Amos. Irachus in a statement, a Cuidzeg, a Cahir Thrace, a Hinjeg at 11:15 today, the 7th of July, or yesterday, as I record actually, for Antirna Tebbit Boss. So Lord Tebbit, that must have been his title, died or got death. Gashia so again, Shiacon is related to peace. Gashia peacefully, the go often meaning ly in Irish, Aiska, easy, Gaheska, easily, Sawalia at home in Ish Anocha Chahar. Again, Balia can also be in town, but we know off context here, it's at home, Sawalia, at the age of 94. Okay, finishing the article pretty much, or this part that we're going to read at least as we started it here. Needless, or God forbid you would forget she was 94, mentioned here, and also mentioned here at the bottom. Okay, so we'll leave that there, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Again, any questions, any issues with that, let me know down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Also, if you want to read the rest of this article, there are other articles on extrag.ie. The link will be down below, both on YouTube and also over on the membership. Again, if you're not an LIO member, you can sign up for all the other episodes of Léigh Arís, Aistriú, Éist Arís, Topic Breakdown, Botún, Gaeilge Weekly, bonus episodes, Muinty Sahar, and much more, many more benefits, including course discounts for the Learn Irish Online courses on the website over at patreon.com/Learn Irish Online, or just look at Learn Irish Online on the Patreon app. Go read the buggy, Slán agus Panacht.